Hello, this is Leonard Reed from the Cobalt City Historical Society. Today we're going to discuss the Crime Kings, a history of organized crime in Cobalt City. It's generally accepted truth that any city of sufficient size will have organized crime of some sort. Even with its long tradition of costume heroes and vigilantes, Cobalt City is no exception. In fact, the enhanced law enforcement in this jewel of New England has succeeded in creating an enhanced criminal network to challenge them. Specifically, this loose confederation, spreading back over 200 years, has created the Crime Kings. Historians recognized four distinct periods of the Crime Kings, four reigns. The first recorded mention comes from letters of the time, placing their origins in the hills of Carlsberg in 1804, which had not yet been incorporated into Cobalt City proper. This first period lasted until 1861. The second period dates from 1880 to 1927 and marks one of the Crime Kings' most colorful incarnations. The third period, from 1929 to 1956, was marked by conflict and transition. And the fourth, and thus far final incarnation, ran from 1961 through 2018 and is distinct due to its consolidation and slow atrophy. Let's take a quick look at those four reigns and types of crimes and criminals that define them. The first reign was formed in the wake of the American Revolutionary War and was at the time an alliance of necessity. Comprised of smugglers, war profiteers, foreign spies stranded after the conflict, and other master criminals who sought safety in number, the growing power of these self-dubbed crime kings necessitated the creation of the first organized group of heroes known as Patriot Circle in 1819. Notable figures include the highwayman Honorable John Ballum, the smuggler Garrett Moore, pictured on the left, as well as the master of disguise, the assassin Kathleen Sims, pictured on the right, skillfully impersonating the 4-year-old son of an intended target. The first reign was ended when the American Civil War led to fractured loyalties and the group's dissolution. The next reign of the Crime Kings was first mentioned in the pages of the Cobalt Liberty newspaper. Founded by 3 descendants of the previous Crime Kings, they included master criminals, saboteurs, and steam-driven madmen. The flamboyance of their capers peaked around the turn of the century, with fantastical airships, sinister hypnotists, and mutated crocodile companions. A dedicated cadre of costume criminals, they maintained a subterranean headquarters in the Parkside neighborhood that operated for years mere blocks from the famed Adventurers Club. They were finally broken in 1927 by the combined effort of individual heroes of that era. The third incarnation started only a few years later, less than a week after the cataclysmic collapse of the stock market in 1929. Driven by the power and notoriety granted by the title of Crime King, the cycle was consumed by turmoil as any petty gangster with a gun tried to lay claim to the name. The cycle was only exacerbated by the legalization of gambling in a limited area of Quayside in 1940. There is speculation that only the country's involvement in World War II a year later kept Cobalt City from devolving into total chaos, as much of the national focus was suddenly halfway across the world. But shortly after the end of the global conflict, a new kind of war flared up in the city as protracted gang conflicts engulfed Cobalt City from 1946 until 1956, until many of the most ambitious gang lords were arrested or killed. Rising from the ashes of the third cycle, the middle century gave Cobalt City its first true organized crime kingpin, Donald Lowe, head of the notorious Lowe Cartel. Having assumed control of the Forbidden Palace Hotel and Casino in 1954, he capitalized on the destruction of the earlier crime kings and used the time to consolidate his power. By the time 1961 rolled around, he and his organization were deeply entrenched. Lowe's innovation was to effectively demote the Crime Kings, assigning the titles to the leaders of 4 gangs with dedicated areas of focus and themed like the 4 suits from the deck of playing cards. With the 4 Crime King gangs beneath him, the Lowe Cartel continued to plague the city for over 50 years. In the 1990s, the Spades changed their name to the Swords, reflecting the original suit from the tarot deck. In 2006, the first cracks began to appear as the Hartz gang, responsible for, among other things, human trafficking and prostitution, was gutted by low cartel enforcer the Harlequin. The Hartz gang never recovered, and the following year the drug operations of the club's gang took a heavy blow from Protectorate hero Mr. Gray, crippling them beyond recognition. As the Lowe family transitioned their portfolio into more legitimate investments, their control and protection of the remaining crime kings waned, leaving them easy picking for the various heroes of the city. By 2018, the crime kings were left atrophied to the point of irrelevance. Though, if history has shown us anything, the legacy of the crime kings seems to outlast any individual incarnation.